In the darkness of the Black Sea, a 5.5-meter unmanned boat packed with explosives rammed into a Russian warship. The strike, captured in video released by Ukraine's defense ministry, did more than damage steel. It changed the rules of the sea battle. Russia's naval dominance, once taken for granted, was abruptly challenged by a vessel no larger than a family car. What allowed this remote-controlled craft to evade defenses engineered for missiles and aircraft? The answer lies in a combination of speed, stealth, and precise targeting. The implications of this attack are forcing military analysts to reconsider what defines power at sea. The silent hunters of the Black Sea. The emergence of unmanned surface vehicles, small, fast, and nearly invisible, has introduced a new kind of threat in the Black Sea, known as the silent hunters. These platforms are engineered to exploit the blind spots in shipboard radar and approach undetected. Rather than relying on size or armor, they use their compact form to slip past conventional defenses, bringing a different kind of precision and lethality to naval warfare. Ukraine's Sea Baby and MAGURA 5 stand at the forefront of this shift. Both are multi-purpose USVs, but each is optimized for a distinct mission profile. The Sea Baby, developed by the Security Service of Ukraine, is designed to deliver a massive payload, up to 850 kilograms of explosives against stationary targets such as docked warships or critical infrastructure. Its operational range extends at least 1,000 kilometers, allowing it to reach targets deep within contested waters. Some variants have even been equipped with mounted machine guns, adding another layer of versatility for combat scenarios beyond kamikaze strikes. The MAGURA 5, built by Ukraine's main Directorate of Intelligence, is tailored for active engagements with moving warships. At 5.5 meters long and weighing under 1,000 kilograms, it is compact and agile. Its operational range reaches up to 800 kilometers, and it carries an explosive charge of 300 kilograms, enough to breach the hull of a military vessel. The MAGURA 5's advanced onboard sensors and tracking systems give it an edge in targeting and navigation, allowing it to close in on moving targets with high precision. Both platforms are remotely operated, guided by operators using real-time controls supported by satellite tracking. This setup enables precise maneuvering at long distances, often without a direct line of sight. Operators can adjust the USV's course in response to changing conditions, redirecting it as new intelligence comes in or as the target attempts evasive maneuvers. The result is a weapon that can be deployed flexibly, adapting to both static and dynamic threats across a broad expanse of contested sea. The tactical advantage of these USVs stems from their ability to approach at speeds of up to 42 to 48 knots. MAGURA 5 at 78 km per hour, 42 knots, and Sea Baby at 90 km per hour, 48 knots. Their low radar profile and sea skimming approach allow them to close the distance before defensive systems can react. Russian warships, equipped with anti-air missile systems and supported by escorts, have found themselves vulnerable to these small, fast-moving threats that evade traditional detection and interception methods. Deployment strategies often involve launching multiple USVs in coordinated attacks. This swarm tactic can overwhelm a ship's defensive countermeasures, forcing crews to split their attention and resources across several simultaneous threats. Even a single USV poses a significant risk, but in numbers, they magnify the pressure on defensive systems and increase the likelihood of a successful strike. The cost asymmetry is striking. Each USV is relatively inexpensive compared to the warships they threaten, yet their impact is outsized. A successful hit can disable or destroy a vessel worth hundreds of millions, while the loss of a USV represents a minimal investment. This dynamic forces adversaries to reconsider not only their defensive postures, but also the economics of naval warfare. Russian ships must now operate with heightened caution, often relying on additional escorts, deploying helicopters and drones for patrol, and altering their movement patterns to avoid potential ambushes. For Ukraine, the ability to scale these operations is a force multiplier. The Sea Baby and MAGURA V5 offer a repeatable, adaptable solution for striking at high-value targets and disrupting enemy logistics. Their presence alone compels Russian commanders to divert resources to countermeasures and repairs, eroding the effectiveness of the fleet over time. The broader implications are clear. The introduction of these USVs has shifted the operational environment in the Black Sea, making it unpredictable and hazardous for even the most well-equipped naval forces. The silent hunters have proven that speed, precision, and adaptability can undermine traditional concepts of naval dominance. The arrival of these new threats has not gone unnoticed. When a fleet accustomed to security is confronted by an unexpected and effective weapon, the immediate response is often confusion and disarray. A navy in disarray. The Russian Black Sea Fleet found itself in an unfamiliar position. Its command structure was reportedly caught off guard, and the resulting chain of actions revealed a navy struggling to adapt to a new kind of threat. As the impact of the Ukrainian USV strike became clear, defensive protocols were activated in haste. Warships shifted into tighter formations, seeking mutual protection against unknown numbers of additional unmanned vessels. Helicopters and drones were launched in quick succession, sweeping the waters for further threats. Emergency repair crews moved rapidly to contain damage and restore operational capability, while damage control teams fought to manage the aftermath on board the affected ship. The response was not coordinated or proactive, but reactive, a scramble to regain control in the face of an unexpected and unconventional attack. This sequence of hurried maneuvers exposed more than just a momentary lapse. Satellite imagery in the days following the strike revealed a marked reduction in the number of Russian naval vessels stationed at Sevastopol. Analysis indicated that elements of the fleet had redeployed eastward to safer ports like Novorossiysk and Abkhazia. This strategic pullback was not a planned redeployment, but a direct consequence of the vulnerability exposed by Ukraine's new tactics. Ships that once patrolled the western Black Sea now avoided contested waters, seeking refuge in locations considered less accessible to unmanned surface vehicles. The operational map of the Black Sea shifted almost overnight, with Russia's most valuable naval assets withdrawn from forward positions. The disruption was not limited to fleet movement. Changes rippled through patrol schedules and air reconnaissance operations as commanders attempted to anticipate further strikes. Defensive postures replaced routine maneuvers, with vessels spending more time at anchor in protected harbours rather than projecting power along the coast. The Black Sea Fleet's operational readiness was affected, its routines upended by the persistent threat of further USV attacks. This shift in posture was mirrored in the Russian government's efforts to manage public perception. State-controlled media either avoided coverage of the incident or issued brief, carefully worded statements that downplayed the severity of the damage. The objective was clear: limit reputational fallout and preserve the narrative of control. However, the visible consequences of the attack, emergency repairs, sudden redeployments, and heightened security, spoke to a reality that could not be fully concealed. The Kremlin's decision to cancel its annual Navy Day parades in St. Petersburg, Kaliningrad, and Vladivostok underscored the depth of concern. Official statements cited security reasons as the cause, but the timing aligned closely with the escalation of Ukrainian drone and USV attacks on Russian naval assets. These parades, typically a demonstration of maritime strength and unity, were called off in a move that signaled unease at the highest levels. The cancellation was not just a precaution, it was an acknowledgement that the threat had grown too significant to ignore, and that public displays of naval power now carried unacceptable risks. On the tactical level, the incident highlighted a critical vulnerability in the Black Sea Fleet's defences. Russian warships are equipped with advanced anti-air and missile systems, but these assets are optimized for intercepting high-speed aerial threats, not low-profile, sea-skimming vessels. The Ukrainian USV exploited this gap, bypassing traditional layers of protection and forcing commanders to rely on last-minute detection and physical barriers. The hour spent searching for additional unmanned boats, deploying aerial assets, and coordinating emergency repairs reflected a broader deficiency. The fleet's existing doctrine was not prepared for the realities of asymmetric maritime warfare. This vulnerability had operational consequences. With resources diverted to counter USVs, routine missions were disrupted and flexibility was lost. The Black Sea Fleet, once able to project power across the region, now operated under constraints imposed by a single, relatively inexpensive weapon system. Every redeployment, every cancelled event, and every shift in patrol pattern pointed to a force recalibrating in real time, struggling to adapt to a threat it had not anticipated. The strategic impact of the attack extended well beyond the immediate damage inflicted on a single vessel. For Russia, the Black Sea has long been a symbol of military and geopolitical strength. The exposure of the fleet's limitations and the subsequent changes in posture challenged the narrative of dominance that had been carefully cultivated. Ukraine's use of USVs forced Russian commanders to reassess not just tactics, but the very foundations of their operational strategy in contested waters. As the dust settled, it became clear that the consequences of this strike were not isolated. The Black Sea Fleet was forced into a defensive stance, its vulnerabilities exposed to both allies and adversaries. The rapid shift in operational priorities, the visible withdrawal from forward bases, and the muted official response all signaled a turning point. The question now facing naval strategists is not just how to repair the damage, but how to respond to a new paradigm, one in which small, cost-effective vessels can upend the balance of power at sea. The new rules of naval warfare. Established doctrines are being rewritten in real time as navies confront threats that were, until recently, little more than a theoretical possibility. The emergence of Ukraine's unmanned surface vehicles has introduced a new set of operational rules, ones that challenge the assumptions underpinning modern naval power. The shift is not about overwhelming force or the size of a fleet, but about how a small and agile platform can exploit vulnerabilities that larger, more expensive systems cannot address. Ukraine's USVs are not the products of vast military-industrial complexes. The Sea Baby and MAGURA Vi-5, for example, represent investments of roughly $240,000 to $273,000 per unit. In contrast, a single Russian corvette is valued in the hundreds of millions. This cost asymmetry is not just a budgetary detail, it is a strategic advantage. Each time a low-cost USV damages or destroys a warship, the economic calculus shifts further in favor of the attacker. The ability to field multiple platforms at a fraction of the cost of a single adversary vessel forces established powers to reconsider the sustainability of traditional force structures. The financial and operational risks of deploying capital ships now include the very real possibility of loss to a weapon that is both affordable and expendable. The impact of these platforms extends well beyond the immediate destruction of hardware. The Russian Black Sea Fleet's redeployment is a direct response to this new reality. After repeated USV strikes, key assets have been relocated from Sevastopol to Novorossiysk on Russia's east coast, with some vessels reportedly sheltering in Abkhazia. This movement is not simply about evading attack. It is a recognition that the Black Sea is no longer a secure operating environment for traditional naval assets. The fleet's withdrawal has forced Russian commanders to accept longer, more exposed supply routes to Crimea, increasing both the risk and the logistical complexity of sustaining operations in the region. The disruption is not limited to a single engagement or loss. It is systemic, affecting the flow of resources and the tempo of military activity across the theatre. This transformation in naval warfare is attracting attention far beyond the Black Sea. Western allies and military analysts are studying Ukraine's tactics as a potential blueprint for future conflicts. The success of low-cost, unmanned systems against a conventional navy demonstrates that technological innovation and tactical flexibility can yield outsized results. The lessons extend to doctrine, procurement, and strategic planning, prompting a reassessment of how to defend against and potentially deploy similar platforms in other contested maritime regions. The Black Sea has become a proving ground, a battle lab, where new operational concepts are tested under real-world conditions and observed by global powers preparing for the next evolution in naval conflict. The redefinition of naval power is not limited to the platforms themselves. It is evident in the changing posture of the Russian fleet, which now prioritizes survivability over dominance. The emphasis has shifted from projecting force to securing assets, a reversal that limits the ability to influence events ashore and undermines the broader strategic objectives that once defined Russia's maritime presence in the Black Sea. The defensive stance, adopted by a traditional blue water navy, highlights the limitations of legacy systems when confronted with disruptive technologies. This is not a temporary adjustment. It is a recalibration of operational priorities driven by the persistent threat of unmanned attacks. At the core of this transformation is the realization that mastery of fast, adaptable, and precise tools is now a decisive factor in maritime security. The old model, where capital ships and advanced air defenses guaranteed control, has been challenged by the effectiveness of platforms that are small, affordable, and difficult to counter. Each successful USV strike reinforces the need for navies to invest in countermeasures, rethink their deployment patterns, and adapt their doctrines to a landscape where the balance of power can shift rapidly and unexpectedly. The implications of these developments are global. As navies around the world watch the unfolding campaign in the Black Sea, they are forced to confront the possibility that their own fleets may face similar threats. The lessons drawn from Ukraine's use of unmanned systems will shape procurement decisions, operational planning, and strategic postures for years to come. The transformation underway is not confined to a single conflict or region. It signals a broader shift in how maritime power is conceived and contested. This evolution in naval warfare is already leaving its mark. The Black Sea stands as a demonstration of how quickly and decisively the rules can change. Ukraine's campaign in the Black Sea underscores a pivotal shift in naval warfare. Small, unmanned boats have upended the doctrine that once favored large, heavily armed ships. By leveraging low-cost, attritable systems, Ukraine has achieved strategic effects, sinking high-value vessels and forcing a modern navy onto the defensive, limiting its reach and influence. This evolution expands the operational toolkit for maritime conflict, proving that innovation can outweigh sheer size. Tell us in the comments how you think navies should adapt to this sea drone revolution. Will tomorrow's great navies be measured by size or by innovation? Subscribe to CyberMach News for expert analysis on the technologies reshaping military power at sea.